We're live now.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Everson. All right, good afternoon, staff. Good afternoon, commissioners. We will call this Caddo Parish Commission regular agenda virtual to order. It is September the 3rd at 3:32 p.m. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Young.
Present.
Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrell, were you there?
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Present.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Present.
Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Present.
All right, I'm counting 11 present and 1 absent.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everson. Commissioners, I was actually given a prayer from my church member, Alex T. Ray, and I believe our Commissioner Watts's cousin. He would like us to read this today, so I'm going to read it to you guys. So if you would bow your heads with me, this is a prayer confession for the city of Shreveport. In the name of Jesus, we bind the strong man that have held Shreveport in bondage. We bind the spirits of greed, violence, murder, suicide, and self-destruction. We bind the spirits of division and racism, strife, mental oppression, depression, and mind control, crime, vandalism, stealing, assault, and gang violence. We evict every demonic spirit from the neighborhoods in Shreveport and decree that works of the devil are destroyed. We plead the blood of Jesus over every household in Shreveport and render every assignment of the enemy against our youth null, void, powerless, and ineffective. We declare that heavenly angels have been given charge over Shreveport to protect, guard, and defend in Jesus' name. We loose the blessings upon every individual, family, neighborhood, business, and area of government in Shreveport. We decree that every stronghold of the enemy has fallen and is no more. Father, send forth laborers into Shreveport, preaching the gospel, bringing healing to the brokenhearted, deliverance to the captives, and liberty and restoration to them that are bruised. According to Isaiah 55, verse 11, your word will not return to you void, and Proverbs 18, verse 21, that life and death are in the power of the tongue. And we speak life over Shreveport, that all is well in Shreveport. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Appreciate my church member, Mr. Alex Ray, for that prayer. He would have liked to come, but he had to go to work, so he couldn't pray over us in person, but he would like to come in the future. We're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Stephen Jackson.
Yes, all you please rise, place your hand over your heart. All active and retired military personnel can render a brow salute and repeat in unison with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Everson, do I have any agenda additions? Or I have none. Do you have any?
I am not aware of any. I did just get a message that our feed is not going out correctly. Could y'all hold on just one moment and let us confirm that the feed is broadcasting correctly?
Absolutely.
I'm being told the sound's not coming through. So if you could give us just 1 sec to troubleshoot it.
Sure. Hey, VP, is that your puppy?
It's one I used to have.
That's cool. That's a good looking dog.
All right, sorry about that. Thank you. Looks like everything looks correct. I don't know if maybe it was somebody else's, a citizen just let us know, and it may have been their connection.
Is the sound working now?
I'm told it is.
Here, we'll check it just in case.
Yeah, if anybody's got an extra phone that you can.
I do.
log into.
I got a couple screens. It's working now.
Great.
Mr. Everson, I didn't receive any agenda additions. Did you?
Nor did I.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
that brings us to citizens' comments, and I've only received one citizens' comment electronically. We can give out the number right now as 318-226-6596 if there's anybody out there that would like to call in. Again, that number is 318-226-6596. And while we wait to see if anybody has called, you want me to go ahead and read the electronic comment that I received?
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, so this comment says Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts is to be commended for her leadership role in organizing yesterday's call for prayer. Stormy, along with State Representative Tammy Phelps and Councilwoman Tabitha Taylor, are to be commended for this great event. Stormy joined many other leaders in addressing the need for all citizens to seek God's guidance in assisting and fighting crime in our community. She was joined by Phelps, Taylor, Mayor Adrian Perkins, and Caddo School Board members Mary Trammell and Dottie Bell, who also spoke. The mother of a child killed by gun violence also addressed the crowd, expressing concern for her 16-year-old son and the need to fight the criminals on the street. Her comments left the crowd teary-eyed and virtually stunned. The call to pray should serve as a wake-up call to all citizens in Caddo Parish. As Stormy said, when a tough job is to be done, women take the lead. Amen, amen. From Emily Settle Merkel. And that is the only comment that we've received. Do we have anybody on the line? It doesn't appear that we do. No callers right now. So if y'all are ready to move on, we can move on.
Yes, please, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. We have no visitors, adopt regular session minutes or special resolutions, being that this is a teleconference meeting. But we are going to communicates and committee reports where we do have some visitors that are following up on questions that were asked the other day. At this time, I'll call to your attention. This is where the certificate of teleconference is attached. No action is required on that. And if we'd like to have the administration's response, we welcome that.
Mr. Everson, I see former council member and probably the power savior of the city, Michael Corbin online.
Yes, indeed.
I know he's probably very busy. He's coming down, I'm sure, to give a report. Let's let him go.
Mr.
First.
Corbin and Mr. Ellis are two guests that were in response to your request the other day that are both on the line with us. So I believe Dr. Wilson is going to introduce them.
Awesome. Dr. Wilson, you want to take it from the top?
Yes, good afternoon. I did have a commissioner request to have Mr. Mike Corbin come online and kind of give us an update about the recovery efforts from the recent storm. And I believe that was Commissioner Kenny Epperson that made the request. And then next we have Mr. Otis Ellis. This is going to he's with us today to talk about broadband in the rural areas of the community. And Commissioner Burrell requested I invite him today to appear before you all. So if you would, Mr. Corbin, would you go first, please, and kind of give us an update on what's going on with respect to where we are currently with power?
Certainly, Dr. Wilson, be glad to, and I appreciate the opportunity to go first because I do have another call at 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
As after the storm blew through Thursday, SWEPCO experienced 136,000 outages. That's 94% of our customers. As we've gone through and assessed damage, we had 23 transmission lines damaged. We had 20 substations damaged, and 600 utility poles need to be replaced. As of today, we are at about 24,100 customers out in what we call our Valley District. That would be from Stonewall South to Leesville. And we have around 600 in Shreveport-Bossier area right now, and that number is quickly falling and will be down to normal levels by close of business today. You may have seen our base camp set up at the Louisiana State Fairgrounds. We have a base camp there at the fairgrounds. We have a base camp, or we had a base camp earlier at CenturyLink Center. We have disbanded it. We have a base camp in Leesville, and the CenturyLink base camp has since moved to Northwestern State University in Natchitoches. We have over 3,000 additional utility workers here working just for SWEPCO. They represent utility companies and crews from 15 states and from Canada. And everybody wants to know, well, how did Canadians get here? They were doing some work in Texas, and on their way back, the storm hit and they volunteered to come and do some work for us. So they've been quite entertaining to the residents that got to visit with them. But we are making progress. Shreveport area is about cleared up. We have many challenges down in the Valley District. It's largely rural. A lot more rain and mud down there. We're having to use a lot of specialized equipment, and those folks will likely, large numbers of them will likely be without power through the weekend. So that's kind of a brief overview. If any of you have any specific questions about Shreveport and Caddo Parish, be glad to answer those questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. I see Commissioner Epperson with his hand up. Commissioner Epperson, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. Michael, I hope you didn't think that we invited you down to chew you out, but I've been through a number of these, and I took a lot of heat for you because I understand how it goes. They started with me about 4:30 Saturday morning, and of course, I email you, and I just want to applaud you as well as SWEPCO and all of the other persons that came in from the other utilities companies as to a job well done. And of course, I educated a lot of the constituents as to the process. If they hear a noise or pop or something, if they see the lineman out, go out and tell them where they heard the noise come from. If they know where a pole transformer is located. So we cleared up a lot of those things. I got a lot of compliments calling back, said that everything was restored and everyone was very pleased. So once again, thank you. I realize the magnitude of this, and everyone should, everybody figure that theirs ought to be on before anybody else's. But thank you all for a job well done. And hopefully these things can be minimized, but we appreciate it very much. Also, Foster Campbell, tell Foster Campbell, I emailed him, and he has always have had special words for me, which I can't disclose out publicly now, as to my comments to him when we have these type of situations over the years. Thanks again.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. And I have spent a lot of time with Commissioner Campbell over the past few days, and I will let him know that you gave compliments.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Atkins is next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Corbin, I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Epperson's comments on how well y'all did during this storm. Typically down in the southern part of the parish, we lose power early, as you know, and being from that area, we lose power early and get back on late. You guys must have been pre-prepared, because although we lost power early, it came back on almost, a couple hours, which was really good work for the type of storm we underwent. So on behalf of all the people in District 9, we want to thank you all for your prompt service. That's it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrell is next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mike, I don't envy you, buddy. As you know, I spent 22 years in telecommunications, where when your poles fall, our poles and our lines fall. So utility business is a tough business when it comes down to storms. I went on loan with Bell South in '93 with Hurricane Andrew. You know how devastating that was in Florida. So I have an appreciation for what you do. My question is, how are you all on tree maintenance and tree trimming? Because that's one of the biggest issues I know that we deal with when we talk about disasters. Normally, it's not the buried lines. It's those that are in the air. Are you all pretty current on that kind of stuff?
Well, we do as much tree trimming as budgets will allow. And, we regularly go to the Public Service Commission to ask for additional funds for tree trimming. If there's a positive spin on any of the storm damage, is many of the trees and limbs that were in jeopardy and around the lines either fell or our crews cut them as they were going in doing restoration work. So that should improve our reliability a little bit there. One of the things that we're going to talk about with the public following complete storm restoration is when we do come in to trim trees, especially in neighborhoods that have a heavy tree canopy. Neighbors don't like those trees trimmed, and it's a point of contention often. And I think we're going to begin an education campaign, for the citizens and the customers of how important tree trimming is, and how that does improve reliability, and even in storms, you can still keep your power on if you properly trim trees.
Well, I agree with that, and because I had to get my trees trimmed, but I think what customers have a problem with, and I know that they discussed this with me because I used to be in utilities, is the fact that a lot of times when the trees are cut, they are not cut properly, and then either their tree dies, or they cut on one side and the tree leans. So you have those kind of issues. I know that customers many times talks about, and since you were mentioning limbs down, my limb is still on top of my my drop going to my house. The last time we had a storm, one fell out of the tree there and actually tore my, what do you call that that attached to the house?
Your service line.
The service line. It tore a big hole in my roof. But now I still have this one. I know you promised me that they'll get out there and take it off, but I'm hoping that they'll come sooner than later. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Burrell, as a reminder, after the meeting, would you text me your address again?
I'll do that. I got your personal number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mr.
Commissioner
President.
Burrell. Yes, sir. Commissioner Epperson, I still see your hand up. Did you want to speak again?
Yes, sir. Michael, the new insurance as far as restoring power from the service pole to the house in the event of a situation, would you just give a brief explanation? That a lot of people were they've been calling about that because they've been getting the reports in the with their billing. So say for instance, if damage was done between the pole to the house, even though the hurricane was at fault, are they now still responsible for that restoration work from the pole to the house if they don't have that insurance?
The customer is responsible for the weatherhead and the meter box on the house. We will put the service drop from wherever the utility line is to the house. But if in Mr. Burrell's case, if a limb fell on that service line and it pulled his weatherhead away from the house and damaged it, then we can't reconnect power until that has been corrected by the customer and an electrician. We are offering our customers a low-cost insurance policy that would protect weatherhead and meter box and pay for those expenses in case they were damaged either in a storm or a tree falling or anything like that. The paying that additional insurance is completely the customer's decision, It's not required. It's 100% optional, and it does not guarantee that you will never lose power.
Was that brought about through legislation, through the PSC or our state reps? How did that come about?
The Public Service Commission is certainly aware of it, and I think you'll find that other utilities offer similar insurance policies. I think CenterPoint has a policy that consumers can buy, and you may see some for some telecommunications companies as well.
Point of information, if I can.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Point of information.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
In conjunction with what Mike said about the drop leaving the pole, there is a certain right of way that SWEPCO has for trimming trees. So my question is, if there's a limb that is on a tree within that right of way that is not trimmed and it falls on that line, was SWEPCO responsible for it, or is it still the customer if it tears out their weather vane?
The customer would be responsible for it.
So SWEPCO has no responsibility for trees or limbs that come off a tree that should be trimmed in your right of way.
We trim right of ways that we are able to trim. Many right of ways are not accessible, and there's a tree trimming plan annually, but we certainly can't trim every tree that's a part of our distribution system every year.
All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jackson.
Hey, Councilman Corbin, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Commissioner?
I'm good. I have a question unrelated to the storm, to the hurricanes. I appreciate y'all's work in getting folks together. I know when the text messages went out telling folks that they wouldn't be back up until September 2nd, when it was August 31st, sent a lot of shockwaves. And I told them, I said, well, I think they kind of under promising so they can over deliver. And I think y'all have over delivered pretty well in getting folks back online. So thank you for that. But I'm just wanted to put on your radar, and you tell me who or where if you want to, but the lights on Clyde Fant are out. It's pitch dark on Clyde Fant a lot of times. Is that y'all? Is that the city? Who would be responsible for that? I feel like I should know this one.
It's a combination, Commissioner. We are responsible, we as SWEPCO are responsible for the maintenance of parkway lights basically from Cyport to Shreveport Barksdale, and then Shreveport Barksdale South, the city is responsible for. So that'd be Shreveport Barksdale to 70th Street. And there are a couple of lights in there that are still kind of questionable. So is there a certain section where they're out right now?
I would say it's from Southport to probably right there where you enter into the little parking area where the kids get together, the young folks get together and huddle up at. And I don't know if they're shooting them out or whatnot. And it's in the, I think it's in the southbound lane, but you may want to check both because I imagine they may be out on both sides, but I believe it's in the southbound lane. And and just kind of FYI on that one. And then I appreciate y'all. I had some seniors over on Arlington and I hadn't drove by there yet, but I did get the notification that they had put them in the queue. Don't know how the hurricane may have affected that, but some seniors who were concerned about how dark it was, come to find out it's just the street lights were out. So appreciate you and thank you. And if you could check on the Clyde Fan for me.
Will do. Thank you, Commissioner.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. I see no other commissioner on the board. Michael, I know you got to get out of here at 4, so we'll bid you a farewell and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Commissioner Lopez. Yes, sir. Our next guest is Mr. Otis Ellis, and he's here to kind of give us an update on broadband for the rural areas. Mr. Ellis?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for having me, and thank you,
Thank you for coming.
Commissioner Burrell, for giving me a little bit of time to share with you broadband. Well, as you know, since the pandemic, broadband has become sort of a national spotlight. It's really highlighted the importance of having internet connectivity at home as well as for schools and work. Sort of coming out of this, or we're still in the midst of this, there's been sort of like a moral imperative to get rural and urban communities connected to the internet. It's sort of similar to when water in the late 1800s and electricity in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that it's now an essential. Internet connectivity is an essential. It's a utility, for lack of a better term. And one of the things that we've been experiencing through the Digital Infrastructure Committee in Shreveport is when we've been working and talking and learning from school systems, from library systems to elected officials, is that there's not a good roadmap or a sense of who's connected and who's not. I'll give you an example of what I mean. We've been talking with the Caddo Parish public school system. They have 38,000 students, and they don't know who's connected to the internet. School went back into session last week. They're gonna have a problem on how to get kids who opt not to come in person. How are they gonna continue on with their educational requirements? And so in working with these various stakeholders, we have been identifying the need where the high demand is in rural and urban parts of Shreveport. We've been talking and getting the message out through surveys, which, by the way, we've had a survey out for about 3 weeks now in Shreveport, and there's been over 1,000 responses, which I think is commendable for folks to respond to understanding how they can get this problem solved. We've been partnering with internet service providers to devise a plan to get affordable and high quality internet to rural and urban parts of Shreveport, as well as in the parish. And so there's another component to broadband that I think is very important, and that is really workforce development. You know, how can folks be trained to have IT support jobs, to do things like laying fiber, laying wireless networks to improve internet connectivity? We believe, and that we've been finding, that this is going to create a sustainable pathway coming out of the pandemic to create jobs that's going to generate local revenue. And so in my closing, just because I like to keep this as brief as possible to open up the floor for any questions, the ask is that if any of the commissioners on the call want to set some time up to begin talking about ways in which we can help you to get broadband to your districts, hands raised up, I'm happy to do that. The second ask is to help to get the survey out. We've been going on the radio, we've been putting it in the newspapers. We also have digital format to understand what the need is so we can work with you and public and private partners to come up with the plan for your district. And so that will be my two asks, and that will summarize my comments relative to broadband. And so, Dr. Wilson, I'd like to turn the floor back over to you, as well as to President Chavez.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Burrell.
Before Mr. Otis get off, this is my first time actually meeting him face to face. He's a part of the Shreveport Recovery Task Force, the Broadband Committee. I'm actually on infrastructure on that particular task force. I would like for Mr. Otis to kind of give you just a taste of his background. A lot of times people have a little bit more respect whenever you know these people know what they're talking about. And he's not out of Shreveport. I believe he's in New York, if I remember. Mr. Otis?
Correct, Commissioner Burrell. So I'm a native Philadelphian. I've been in the New York area for about the last 10 or 15 years. I spent 32 years on Wall Street, most recently at JP Morgan. My passion for technology started when I was in the 7th grade, and I started coding with languages like Fortran, BASIC, Pascal, COBOL. I started my own technology company about 5 years ago, aimed at helping the underserved get and create wealth. The name of my company is called Investing. And so having a passion for technology as well as finance, that's sort of what has allowed me to bring my experiences and my skill sets to the city of Shreveport.
Yeah, and Mr. President, as you know, I've repeated before, he's kind of a man out of, after my own heart, because I spent 22 years designing fiber and broadband for broadband service. So I know a little bit about this too. So again, we appreciate him coming. So hopefully there are some questions that our fellow commissioner may want to ask Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell, and Mr. Ellis, thank you for coming down. I share a similar background as Commissioner Burrell. I came from the CLEC side of the telecom industry, and my background comes from satellite communication and fiber optics in the U.S. Army. So I spent some time in Iraq setting up point-to-point transmissions. I like what you're doing, and I like what I'm hearing. I guess my only question is how are we going to achieve the connectivity out to the rural areas? What's the plan of action? I agree with you wholeheartedly. We definitely need access. Or is that what we're doing right now? Is we are investigating how we're going to link the rural community into the hubs?
Yes, President Chavez, I think that's important. We're doing first a needs assessment, because as you know, there are different technologies that are appropriate. What we've been experiencing is a hybrid approach, some fixed line, some wireless, some mesh networks, because we want to make sure that it's cost effective. We want to make sure that the funding, we can bring that to the table as well. And we're rapidly finding various funding sources, from the E-rate program to the NTIA, the USDA, especially in the rural parts of the parish. There are a lot of monies that we want to bring together for the respective commissioners to determine which is the best network design. Now, we know that these designs won't take forever. On average, we're seeing that it could take anywhere between 6 to 8 months to put in a system, right? So we're not talking about 6 months to 12 months. We're talking about, we could get this done if we are in partnership with the elected officials, with the municipality, with the school systems, with the library systems. And the reason I'm mentioning those is because we could utilize existing buildings for right of usage. We could combine that with revenue sharing arrangements with the municipalities to generate revenue. So to answer your question succinctly, President Chavez, we want to do first a needs assessment, and then that will determine what type of network we ultimately put before each district, for them to vote on and to decide themselves what is most appropriate.
And Mr. President, also on a national scale, on a national level, Congress is very much interested in putting forth additional broadband as part of an infrastructure package if they can stop fighting long enough to do that. And I think this is a good time to take that assessment. Because as it comes down, we need to be prepared. So I'm saying that to say this. I plan to introduce a resolution of support from the commission. That's the reason why I wanted Mr. Ellis to talk to you personally before I introduce anything, so that if they had any questions, they could ask him personally, since he's chairing it. And hopefully we won't have any problems in supporting their efforts. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm glad that you brought him down. I love what Mr. Ellis is saying, and I do like the fact that we have Commissioner Burrell on board with us, but perhaps we can send you up to Washington and show those guys how we get along, because we do down here. We get along, even though we have different letters behind our name, and I'm glad that you made it up here from the legislator. I have Commissioner Epperson on the line next. Commissioner Epperson?
Yes. Mr. Ellis, I'd like to introduce you. Are you familiar with National Association of County Officials out of Washington, D.C.?
Yes, Commissioner. I used to live in DC. I am aware of what the organization is and what some of their agenda is.
Okay, well, good. Well, some of us are on the Information and Technology and Communications steering committees, and we'd like to put you in contact with them also.
Wonderful. Let me also share with you that Senators Cassidy and Senators Kennedy and Congressman Mike Johnson have been very supportive of helping us to get the word out about the needs assessment. So the elected officials that are very prominent in Shreveport are already endorsing this and seeing the importance of getting broadband to their citizens. So there's already support, there's already momentum. So I wanted to share that to let you know that this is not a ground zero type of initiative. There's already support, and the more support we get, and as we come together with plans, which if we do decide to partner up, I'd be happy to be very transparent with you so you understand what we're trying to do. And the ultimate goal is to get affordable, high-speed internet access to rural and urban parts of Shreveport and the Caddo.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Commissioner Epperson, you still have the floor. I wanted to make sure that you got everything in before we moved on.
That's all.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Ellis, I see no one else on the board. Because of the way that our meetings are set up via Zoom, we're still working through the process. I don't know if Commissioner Burrell brought forth a resolution that would allow us to discuss it up until after this pandemic is over. However, I know there's a lot of commissioners on this call that would be very anxious to jump into a committee meeting and discuss this further with you. So Commissioner Burrell, I'll get with you and we'll figure out a way where we can get this on the agenda to work through and expedite it and get this done in Caddo Parish. Before you take off, I do see Commissioner Young wanting to make a comment. Commissioner Young, you have the floor.
Oh, my comment is not about.
Okay, we'll save it. Or Dr. Wilson, if you'd like to bid Mr. Ellis.
Yes, Mr. Ellis, have you spoken to the Coordinating Development Council yet, Mr. Jack Skaggs?
No, I haven't, Dr. Wilson.
Okay, I think I'll be in touch with you via either phone or email again, and then get you all hooked up, because they do a lot of the rural development under the USDA programs here in our community, and you need to be talking to those folks as well.
Yes, I am aware of the USDA's program. They've become more flexible because it used to be matching funds now, but I think with the lack of rural connectivity, they're becoming much more flexible in how they're getting funds out, which means that these plans are rolling out a lot quicker than used to. So I will certainly wait to hear from you, Dr. Wilson.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellis. I appreciate you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Commissioner Chavez, the other day, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wilson. Commissioner Young and then Commissioner Epperson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to say a couple things about some agenda items today. The first one is that for the resolution about evictions, the moratorium on evictions, I think that because 24 hours after our last working session, the CDC and the executive branch took a forceful action to prevent evictions throughout our country, that we no longer need to pass a resolution on this. And so to save us time, I'm going to suggest that we just drop it. It's the last thing on our agenda today, so we can just drop it when we get to it, if other people agree. And I thank people who supported it initially, and I'm also grateful to our federal government for having the prudence to institute that. Another one is about the voting site. We sometimes don't have enough time to talk about the voting site all the way through or call for the question. And I just wanted to say that I think the two libraries that that are listed there would be fine. I think the most important thing for us is to coalesce around a choice and pick one and move forward on it so the registrar can take the steps necessary to set it up. So I'm planning to vote for that as it stands today. I also wanted to point out that Dr. Nancy Alexander is here again to answer any questions that anyone might have about the child care subsidy for COVID that we're voting on today. So please keep that in mind. And then I also had a question eventually for the administration, which is about the status of the monument. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Dr. Wilson, you can go ahead and take that now before Epperson comes on.
Yes, sir. Attorney Frazier, you on the line?
Yes,
Okay.
sir, I am.
Hey, would you quick give us a briefing? I know we just had a meeting today on this subject, but go right ahead and tell the commissioners where we are, please.
The Daughters of the Confederacy have complied with their deadline to choose a new location. It is in a battlefield in Mansfield. And we had a meeting with the technical consultant today to start drafting the RFP, which we hope to get out shortly.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Attorney Frazier.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Epperson.
First of all, I'd just like to thank all of our healthcare workers and first responders that are dealing with the COVID pandemic that's scourging our nation today. As of yesterday, we had 6,134,700 cases of COVID-19 in the United States of America. That's up 33,000 from September the 2nd. Deaths in the United States of America, 185,963 and counting, up 1,076 since September the 2nd. Also in Louisiana, 151,000 of cases, up 1,689. Deaths, 5,004, plus 20 since September the 2nd. That puts us 11th nationally out of all of the states in the United States of America. In Caddo Parish, we have 7,482 cases, up 30 since September the 2nd. In deaths, we have 323, up 1 since September the 2nd. That puts us in 5th place out of the state of Louisiana. I'd also like to applaud and thank our Louisiana National Guard, not only Louisiana National Guard, but our National Guards throughout the United States of America. Many of you may not know that they are being deployed to hotspots because we know that only 1% of the population of the United States of America actually volunteers to serve in our military services. Therefore, our National Guard units throughout have been called up multiple times for deployments within hot areas of the world, which we have a presence. We want to applaud them. We want to also let you know that all of our National Guards, including the Louisiana National Guards, have been on the front line of our COVID pandemic. They are setting up field hospitals throughout the nation. They are supporting testing. In addition, with the national disasters that come about, all of those things are being balanced on their plates. And I just hope that we won't continue to just do a lot of rhetoric and a lot of lip service. That I think nationally as well as locally, we should look at doing something a lot more meaningful to our National Guards throughout the United States of America. On top of all of these things that they are dealing with, they are still in the process of some units are getting ready to be deployed. So when we hear people go around and say it's their right not to wear a mask or do this, that, and the other, these are the same people that these volunteer soldiers out of our community are going to have to take care of them and support them through national disasters, through this national pandemic, plus are going to be put in harm's way in hot spots throughout the world. So please, let's not be selfish and take them for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Everson. Commissioner Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was questioning whether or not I should actually address this here in the comment area or down when we talk about the early voting sites. But I'm going to do it here before we get there. Maybe we'll be cooled down by the time we get there. I was very disturbed this morning when I opened my paper and I read from Greg Hilbert, who did a article in USA Today. And this is no reflection on my fellow colleagues here, but given the fact that our Secretary of State, Kyle Ardoin, stated that there will not be any additional extra days and extended hours for early voting for November 3rd. And basically he blamed it on our Governor Edwards, for rejecting his emergency plan when he admitted that the plan that he created, this is public information. He testified that he didn't create a good plan in the first place. In other words, it was bogus in the first place, upheld by the legislature. And I might add, like I said, I don't want to get cross with my own colleague, but our Republican majority legislature, and sent to the governor knowing that he could not approve it because it went against the CDC guidelines. So how do you send a plan for early voting that does not conform to a massive pandemic that is killing a lot of people here in our state and in our nation? And that really concerns me as a public official. I can understand the politics and the partisanship and that kind of thing. But when you actually go against the CDC, which is under tremendous pressure to change their guidelines in order to conform with what the White House wants, which is being admitted on national TV, that we in the state of Louisiana, we tried to get away from a lot of the Washington politics, but it appears, Mr. President and members, that it's coming downstate. Everything seemed to trickle down, kind of like that trickle down effect that we've known for years. And I hate to talk about these things because sometimes it builds discomfort among members that you have respect for, but this is serious stuff. And many times you just can't sit back and allow these things to happen without informing the public that this is not right. And even our Attorney General, who is our Republican Attorney General, Jeff Landrieu, issued an opinion Wednesday saying that any voter who is diagnosed with COVID-19 or is subject to a quarantine order while awaiting COVID-19 diagnosis would qualify to vote by mail, so long as a medical professional certifies the voter is disabled. Now that takes me back to something that we discussed with our parish attorney, where we didn't want to come down and meet face to face. And if we would try to use the guidelines that the city council, Shreveport City Council is using, and Alexandria City Council is using, first you have to have a doctor to declare you being disabled. I don't know what that process is, but it's not just sending an excuse saying that you're sick. That's something totally different. But Attorney General Jeff Landry did not, in his explanation, was contrary to what our Secretary of State put forth. And the only thing that our Secretary of State added to the plan was that that he only added one thing, and let me see what that was. The only exception that was made had to do with expanding absentee mail-in voting options that I believe dealt with people who were already quarantined or they were in the hospital. Other than that, they had to get out and go to the polls and vote. I think that is criminal. And I would be remiss in my duty as a public official, as a community leader, as a family man who is trying to keep this stuff out of his house, that we can do better than that. And I'm just really kind of somewhat upset about this, because I think we can do better than that as individuals, as humans, to try to at least exercise our right to vote in some sort of safe manner. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. That is my comment.
Absolutely. I show no other commissioners on the board. If anybody wanted to get on there, wave at me. If not, we'll move along. I see none. Okay. Mr. Everson?
Sure. Next on our agenda is the president's report. Did you have a president's report today?
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to touch on what took place yesterday. It was very moving, and I want to commend our very own Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts, herself, and Tabitha Taylor and Tammy Phelps. It was very moving, and it was heartfelt, and it let us know that we're at a crossroad in our city, and meeting at the cross is the answer. It's not about politics. It's not about left and right. There's kids dying. There's moms crying, and it's time to look to God to fix it. And I really appreciate them and the prayer and the message that Stormy brought. It was just beautiful, and I really enjoyed being able to be there and just think to myself that it's awesome that we live in a parish, and I know the other 11 commissioners that I serve with share the sentiments, because we voted on putting the "In God We Trust" on our chamber, and in other places across America they may be removing God, but not here. We lean on the Word, and we live by faith, and it's nice to have other commissioners that, regardless of our political affiliation, can agree that meeting at the cross is the best way to fix anything. So I'm very thankful for Commissioner Watts and what they put together yesterday. Also, commissioners, I wanted to bring forth a resolution, and Mr. Everson has it. We can't vote on it yet because there's certain things that don't meet our agenda. Gabe Valdez, he was named the best Mexican restaurant in the state of Louisiana, which I think is incredible. And he wasn't just named the best Mexican restaurant by yours truly or somebody else in Shreveport or somebody even in Baton Rouge or New Orleans, but by the 24/7 Wall Street out of Wall Street in New York. They pulled the best Mexican restaurants across the country. And out of Louisiana, we had one man right here in Caddo Parish in John Atkins District that won that award. And I think people like that, citizens that do great monumentous things like that, they need to be recognized. We got a proclamation or a resolution to give him. However, we're stuck in the situation where, because of COVID, we can't come into the chamber and vote on certain things. So one thing I did bring forth this to Commissioner Jackson, I mentioned this to him. There's a lot of agenda items that are constantly stacking up on our agenda, and they're things that can easily pass by acclamation. And I know we have a couple at-risk commissioners, so by no means am I asking you guys to risk your safety to come in, but if we could collectively get together and go into the chamber to pass those to celebrate our citizens, and we agree beforehand that any political differences on certain agenda items that we deem may get slanted one way or the other because of the fear of certain commissioners not coming in, I would be totally on board as the president to delay those votes to the following meetings when we do meet in person collectively and together to have all 12 commissioners, so each district is represented. But for the easy things like awarding Gabe Balderas a thank you for Caddo Parish, and the many other items that we have on the stacked up agenda that are waiting for us to meet in person, I can give you my word to say that I'd be willing to do that. And I know a lot of the other respectable commissioners that are on this call would be willing to do that. So I would just like to ask my colleagues if that's something that you'd be interested in, because there's a lot of people that, not just myself, but other commissioners have awarded people in their districts. And I'd like to see those people get those awards and those accolades. That could be something that we could work on. Other than that, that concludes my comments. I do see Commissioner Atkins on the board. Commissioner Atkins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point out that Gabe's restaurant is called Cabo Verde, just so we get that name in there, Cabo Verde. Thank you.
Which is pretty cool because it's actually Caddo Bozier. That was what he was going for is initially. So that the word Cabo, a lot of people thinking of Mexico. No, it's not that. And Verde is green in Spanish, which he's a organic, very whole foods Mexican restaurant. So you don't really find a lot of locally sourced organic food where they focus on everything locally sourced, local farmers, and everything grown organically, to the point he even shucks his own corn to make his tortillas. So coming from a household where we made homemade tortillas, I can tell you that's some hard work, and it's commendable, and you can taste it when you go there. Commissioner Jackson.
Great place.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. President, are you suggesting that since I may be the healthiest person, that I should be the lamb to come out to slaughter for the in-person meetings? I should take
No.
the risk of coming down.
I do know that you run more often than most, but and you do look like you're pretty healthy. But now what I was saying is, I know I mentioned this to you.
I got you.
But you do look pretty healthy, Commissioner Jackson.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Everson, no one else on the board. We can move along.
Absolutely. And I'll confirm I was so inspired by the resolution you asked me to write for El Cabo Verde. Had dinner there twice in the last week.
Awesome.
It's good stuff. All right. That brings us to next, we're at public hearing on zoning ordinances and cases, of which we have none today. So our next item is public hearing on ordinances. We do have one. Our public hearing on the ordinance today is for ordinance number 5968 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Economic Development Fund and the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for Southern University at Shreveport's nursing program and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. Let's let a couple minutes go by to let any citizens call in if they would like. If you would advise them of the phone number.
Do you want to go ahead and open the public hearing and then just invite and I'll read the number?
Absolutely. So I'll declare this public hearing open on ordinance number 5968. Since we're in Zoom, if you would like to either speak for it or against it, go ahead and call in, and Mr. Everson will give you that phone number.
That phone number is 318-226-6596. And again, that number is 318-226-6596.
Is that Deputy Nations in the back answering the call?
It looks like we don't have any. I thought it might be, but no, I think that was just another call. So yeah, no calls yet.
Then I will declare public hearing on ordinance number 5968 closed. Mr. Everson will move along.
Okay, that brings us to zoning ordinances for final passage, which we have none of today. And then that brings us to ordinances for final passage, where we do have an ordinance, which is the one we just had the public hearing on, ordinance number 5968 of 2020. Would you like me to reread it or?
Go go ahead. There.
Yeah, sure.
Want to
Yeah,
make sure
just for clarity, in case we have anybody just tuning in. This is ordinance number 5968 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Economic Development Fund and the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for Southern University at Shreveport's nursing program and to otherwise provide with.
Move to adopt.
Second.
I got a motion to adopt by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that?
No.
All right. I show no commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously with 12 in support. So that motion is adopted and that ordinance is adopted. That brings us to zoning ordinances for introduction, of which we have none today. And so our next item is ordinances for introduction by title. We do have several in that category. The first is 16.1, introduced ordinance number 5976 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for a mental health hotline and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. And then you want me to go ahead and read them all?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Introduced ordinance number 5977 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 and to provide an appropriation for Providence House Emergency Rental Assistance Program and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. 16.3 is introducing ordinance number 5978 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the general fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission and to otherwise provide with respect thereto. And then the final one under this section is the introduction of ordinance number 5979 of 2020. And that's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for child care centers for COVID-19 related expenditures and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
All right, thank you, Mr. Everson. Moving along.
So our next section is resolution. What? I'm sorry if I skipped.
We have to ratify the work session.
Work session minutes, although we can't do those in a teleconference, but they are prepared. And what we are doing, just FYI, I know y'all had a little bit of a discussion about it earlier. Those things that we can't hear on teleconference, we are putting on sort of a master agenda for when an in-person meeting is able to happen. So we're not going to lose anything that way, at least, just to reassure y'all. Okay, our next item is resolutions. Resolution number 63 of 2020, a resolution to study establishing a youth education program to interrupt the cycle.
So move.
The chair. Commissioner Watts, would you like to speak on your motion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we discussed it on Monday. If anyone has any further discussions, I'm here at this time. I will reserve my time and ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I see no one on the board. Mr. Everson, roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes unanimously with 12 in support, none in opposition.
Mr. Everson, let the record reflect that Commissioner Jackson was the second on that SUSLA ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think you had called it as Cawthorn, but I'll correct it to reflect Jackson.
They both have some deep voices.
No problem. And just for clarity, the second I heard on that last motion was from the chair. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Cawthorn.
Oh,
No, you can put Cawthorn. I'll yield.
sounds great. Thank y'all. I knew I heard a couple of voices at the same time. Thank you all. The next one is resolution number 67 of 2020. It's a resolution requesting the Registrar of Voters and Caddo Parish Administrator to add additional early voting locations for the
Move
November
to
3rd.
adopt.
Second.
Got a motion to adopt by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Jackson, would you like to speak on that?
No, sir.
All right. I got Commissioner Vice President Johnson. Got your hand up? LBJ?
Yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion.
All right.
Voting location for the November 3rd election.
Commissioner Johnson, could you restate that? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Substitute motion would be to utilize the Bill Cockrell Recreational Center for the early voting location for November 3rd, 2020.
Second.
All right. I got a motion by LBJ, second by Commissioner, not Epperson, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that motion?
I'm just following back up on what we talked about last week and also earlier in this week. I think we need a larger venue than a library meeting room for the early voting location. The rec center, the gym will offer that for us. It will give the citizens an opportunity to park at a close by, to be able to go in, to be able to vote, and to be able to get out. This is probably about the third compromise that I've brought to the table for the commission to talk about and look at. Looking at the letter from Dale today, it looks like if we had chosen the state museum, that cut out a step on running the line and for the parish to pay for it. But the body seemed not to want that particular location. So looking at another location that would be easily accessible, 3132, I-20, I-49, for people to be able to go and vote early. And it's also in a balanced area. So I was trying to make sure that I meet the qualification from what I heard from the meeting the other day. So just hope that people will consider that one as a location for early voting, and this will be temporary and not a permanent site.
Point of information.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Just to kind of expand on this early voting site, I was really kind of taken back for the letter that I did get from Mr. Dale Sibley, and looking through each one of those items that were on there, basically saying that even if all else went well, it would almost take 6 months, and beyond that, it could be a whole year. So, am I understanding, Mr. President, that any location that we choose right now, we're looking beyond the November and possibly even the December runoff, if there's a runoff, that we won't have one stood up. Am I understanding that?
Commissioner Burrell, that was the same information that I received when I spoke to Dale directly. He told me that he honestly felt it was too late in the game to effectively stand up a location, that he worried about the product that he would deliver at such a slim amount of time for preparation. He would have rather saw us send this to a committee and allow the committee to investigate multiple locations simultaneously with the help of himself and and come back with a more combined effort between himself and the Secretary of State, as well as the commissioners via a committee. That was his request.
Well, listening at what you're saying, given the information that I received and looked at today on the items that he listed, it seems as though, taking everything into consideration, it lends more credence to even possibly relocate downtown site to a place like the museum where you would have more space. They wouldn't have to have necessarily any additional staff just for early voting because those people are already trained. It's just the fact that the place is just too damn small. And it's in a situation where parking is terrible. I've seen people who couldn't hardly walk. They have to put them on the side, and then the cars got to go around the circle and try to find a place to park and then come back and get them. I just really think that we're doing a disservice, and we're doing it on a partisan basis, and it just really gets all over me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes, I just want to chime in. And at this juncture of our state several commissioners, we just need to pick a location, move on down the road, and let the registrar do what he needs to do to stand up the location. I don't know whether or not, in my estimation, I don't know exactly how much time it would take, but it would seem to me in my logical mind that you've got to hire commissioners every election that serve, whether they're at a school or they're at a recreation center. I don't think it's feasible at this point to move his office from somewhere else to another location. So I think if we go ahead and just choose one site today, throw it in his court and let him do what he can. At the end of the day, I can be with both, what LBJ just proposed. I can be with the library on in Southern Hills. So I just think we need to just decide on one location today, move on down the road, and let the registrar do what he was hired to do. And that is to give agency to the voting process of Caddo Parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Burrell brings up a good point on the tightness. Dr. Wilson, one thing I'd like to see, if we could get with Dale, perhaps a handicap valet service so that for the incumbent early voting site, anyone that is handicapped can pull up there or have a valet service or something to accommodate them. Yes, and possibly any tents that we could rent for the sidewalk so that any citizens that do show up early to early vote are not standing in the rain. I know that's one thing that I see, and obviously we're not going to solve this right now. That's just some information that I'd like to see is something for the handicapped people and something to keep the rain off the people's heads that are out there waiting, and the sunlight as well.
Yeah. Commissioner.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Commissioner, there's already provisions for individuals that need to have that type of service by curbside. But the problem is there's not enough space there because you have several spaces for American with Disability cars that come up, but there's not enough space to accommodate everybody that comes at one time. So that's why people got to be dropped off to make room for the next person that desires the same service.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
What we're talking about now is germane to what we're debating. Do you see my hand, Mr. Chairman?
I do, Commissioner Everson. I got Commissioner Taliaferro, and then you're on next. I did have a point of clarification on Commissioner Burrell, but
yeah, go ahead.
If it's not Commissioner Burrell,
well, Mr. Burrell had spoken.
This ordinance.
Well, I want to speak again.
Okay, I'll put you on after Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. As I understand it from your dialogue with Mr. Sibley, is that regardless of the location that we select, or if we select one today, in his professional opinion, it's going to be hard pressed to set any one of those locations up in time for early voting. Is that, or is that not correct?
You're 100% correct.
Okay, then based on his professional opinion, and that's what he gets paid to do, I say we abandon this venture, as of today, and pursue multiple agreed upon locations going forward in 2021. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Taliaferro. Commissioner Epperson.
Call for the question.
Second.
Got a call for the question and second by Commissioner Cawthorn. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
No.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
No.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries with 8 in support and 4 in opposition. So just barely, but it carries. And that brings us to, so the motion that we have that we'll be voting on next is the substitute motion to utilize Bill Cockrell as the early voting site. You ready?
Yes, sir. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
No.
Commissioner Young,
No.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro. Commissioner Taliaferro, I didn't hear you.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, I have 5 yeses and 6 no's, so that does not carry unless did I miss a vote?
Yes. It should be 6-6.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I passed up one of the yay votes. I'm sorry. Yeah, motion fails. It's 6-6. Thank you for that correction. That brings us back to resolution 67, which was the original motion that was made.
All right.
Ready?
what's
That
the
was-
original motion?
That was made.
Restate the motion, Jeff?
Yeah, 67 is a resolution requesting the Registrar of Voters and Caddo Parish Administrator to add an additional early voting location for the November 3rd, 2020 election at either the Shreve Memorial Hamilton Branch or Shreve Memorial North Market Library, and otherwise providing with respect thereto. So the motion was to adopt that, and that is the motion that's before us now.
Point of clarification.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
I think what Mr. Taliaferro is getting at is in the body, Commissioner Taliaferro, it gives the registrar the option of if 2020 cannot be met, which is what he has already said, 2021 would be their option. Thank you.
And Mr. President, just for clarification further. So in the event that we agree on the possibility of 2 locations and that Mr. Sibley can't stand up either one of those, then the temporary location that we select rolls into 2020, or we start all over again?
Roll over to 2021. That's the intent.
2021, that's what I meant.
Right.
So what we're saying is we're voting for a temporary location for 2021, not 2020.
We're giving the option.
Sorry.
We're giving the option. We're giving the option. We're giving them that option.
Commissioner Taliaferro, are you clear
Yeah,
on
I'm
it?
with that. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple of the commissioners put your hands up, but I think he was just asking for a clarification on what we're about to vote on. We
Correct.
can't do it because we're under a call for the question.
I got another point of clarification.
The vote.
Yeah.
Question been called for. We voting on the original motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Happy to. Commissioner Hopkins.
Got another
Yes.
point of clarification.
I'm sorry. Vice President has a point of clarification.
Based upon the answer that was just told, looking at the resolution, it talks about November 3rd, 2020. It doesn't talk about from this point forward.
It's in there.
Attorney Fraser or Attorney Bernstein, I don't know if I see Donna on the call, just to give a point of clarification. can you agree with what Commissioner Jackson, the author of the resolution, stated?
It's in the body. I see it in the body, but it wasn't in the header.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I know we're not allowed to talk, but he had a point of clarification. If we've given it to one before, I think it's only fair that we allow everybody to know what they're voting on. Mr. Everson, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
No.
All right, that motion carries with 9 in support and 3 in opposition.
Point of information, Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
This is for my own edification. When you call for the question and you are that passes and you go to the I guess the stated motion for the item, you cannot have a point of information, a point of clarification at that point.
In regards to your question on point of clarification, you can have that, but any debate has to cease.
Well, I understand the debate part, but it appears that you can't even have a point of clarification after someone states that
your point of clarification was correct. We have some crafty colleagues where sometimes the clarification may be more opinionated than an actual inquiry. However, that last point of clarification by whomever asked, those were all correct. But we've had situations in the past where the clarification was more of an opinion piece.
Okay, well,
maybe a better word would be they were appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so
they
I
were
just
actual.
wanted to be clear on that because, Mr. President, I just wanted to be clear on that because it seemed like we do it one way sometime and do it another way at a different time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioners, I have a lot of hands up from that last debate. If you can go down to participations and remove your hand, unless you would like to speak, and then I'll call on you guys next. I saw a lot of hands up.
I'm throwing mine back up because I really need to ask about the downtown location. Well, to ask Dr. Wilson a question about the downtown location. Is that appropriate?
If y'all don't mind, we do have just one more item in this section, and then we'll be, and then we don't have anything in the next section, so we'll be at communiques after that, and you could continue your conversation.
That'll be fine. That'll be fine, Mr. President.
Thank you, Clerk. Good idea. We'll do that. Well, let's finish this last agenda item, and we'll go to communiques.
Great. So resolution number 69 of 2020 is the one that Commissioner Young suggested he was interested in removing from the agenda. It's a resolution urging and requesting Governor John Bell Edwards to establish.
Move to table or remove.
Second.
Second.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Young, second by Commissioner Atkins. Would you like to speak on that motion, Commissioner Young?
I would only like to say that I bet it will pass by acclamation.
I assume you're right, but Mr. Everson.
We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro. Commissioner Taliaferro, I didn't hear you. Commissioner Atkins.
Yes, and Commissioner Taliaferro just demuted
Yes.
himself.
Great. Commissioner Taliaferro, did you?
Yes. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, that motion carries unanimously with 12 in support and none in opposition. As previously mentioned, we don't have anything listed under old or new business in this section right now. So that brings us to communiques and committee reports.
Thank you, Clerk. Commissioner Burrell.
Okay, well, I'll start this off, Mr. President. I wanted to get a clarification from Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir.
On the downtown site, I noticed that because it's so congested down there, and two things. Could we somehow cordon off that, somewhat control and cordon off that section just there next to the courthouse? There are other ways in which they can get around the city to provide additional space for handicapped folks. Even if we create a lane there that we could have cars to be there to let them out and bring them in and allow them to get back in. Second thing is that they have a little canopy outside, which doesn't really protect anything. If you're out under the canopy, the rain blows a little bit and it'll be under it. Can we also extend that canopy down the sidewalk? That'll be against public policy or the city ordinance, where we can have more of a canopy further down, so that if we do get inclement weather, we can at least have a portion of a greater portion of that section out the door under a canopy.
Yeah, Commissioner Burrell, I think it may be limited to the building structure, because it's all glass, as you know, for 3 floors up. 4 floors is all glass. So you may not have the structural wherewithal to install an additional canopy beyond that. But still, I have to take a look at it. But we do have.
But do you understand where I'm asking for the canopy? Is
I
down
understand.
on the sidewalk.
I understand. But
or either out on the street, if necessary, if we can cordon that off. I'm just concerned about having such a congested location, and you're putting people out in the elements where you could have something. You can have a canopy. I've seen canopies. I mean, you have canopies for construction sites, but this doesn't have to be that, to that extent. But at least have a shelter for them.
Freestanding tent. A freestanding tent type thing, right?
That.
Well, we'll take a look at it, Commissioner Burrell, and see what we can come up with.
Okay, I appreciate that. The second thing, the other thing that I wanted to comment on, I don't know if you all saw this on national broadcasting, and Commissioner Atkins, I'm only saying this because we did have Louisiana mentioned in the Republican National Convention, although there was a Democratic convention, but I wanted to recognize Dr. Ghali, who appeared at the Republican National Convention. Believe it or not, I watched it, and I watched it with great anticipation. And Dr. Ghali was there, and they stated he was from Louisiana, as I remember, and from our, I guess it's LSU, Help Shreveport. They didn't mention Oshun, as I can remember, but he was there lauding the president on his support for his fight against COVID. And as you know, according to our papers, that Dr. Ghali did contract COVID. And his statement was that he was commending the president for circumventing the FDA approval for convalescent plasma usage, which has now been rescinded. Dr. Ghali did say that by them circumventing that approval, it allowed him to use it in order to treat his COVID along with something else. But I found it a little interesting that they wind up rescinding that shortly after, and I'm hoping that that doesn't reflect upon us negatively. I support the fact that Dr. Ghali was there. If that's, I'm not getting into his politics. That's his own. but I would hate to think that he was representing a position of our White House circumventing the FDA approval for convalescent plasma, which shortly after they rescinded because they found that it did not work substantially for most people. That was my only point there. I wasn't there to not there to criticize him. I'm just saying that is what was in the public, and I wanted to address it at that time, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Thank you. That ends my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, just want to wish everybody a happy Labor Day coming up. We know that labor is and has been the backbone. I thought Commissioner Epperson would mention it earlier, but labor for a long time has been the backbone of the American economy. And we know that with COVID, a lot of industry, manufacturing has been hit. Places have had to essentially come to a stop, or their work routine has become unhinged because instead of making cars, they're making masks. And so we do want to recognize, particularly in this particular moment of a healthcare crisis, whether you sweep the floor at the hospital or serving meals, or you're the MD performing triple bypass surgery. All labor has dignity and respect, and we want to make sure that all of our workers are appreciated. Those at the parish, those at the city, and those who work on our front lines. Dr. Wilson, if you could,
yes, sir.
If you could, I believe we're going to incur expenses for social distancing for the registrar's office anyhow. Could you look to see if maybe securing tents to go up and down? I know a canopy won't work, but maybe some of those tents to be placed up and down that sidewalk in that area.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we had to get, of course, the city approval to do it, but we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't see it being a big issue. But get the tents out there for the inclement weather. I think wherever we would have went, we would have had to deal with inclement weather, but because people are still gonna have to get out of their cars to go into the physical building. And so whatever we can do, I know we will eventually incur a cost there. I also want to mention that I received a note that the Treasurer's program for the Main Street program still had about $200 million from the CARES Act. Hopefully those dollars, and we will make a crying appeal. I think that timeline is at the end of October when they have to expend those funds. Hopefully if they don't expend them all by the end of October, those dollars can be redirected back to local governments as they were expected to. Also, Commissioner John Paul Young, I commend him for his legislation on the eviction moratoriums. I do commend the CDC for issuing that moratorium. If you read through the moratorium, they still suggest that local, state, and federal programs be utilized to help people make their rental payments. So I don't want people to think that the order by itself solves all of the problems that are out there. They still suggest that programs be set up. And I believe, I don't know if Henry or Donna is on here, but I believe part of the requirement to be able to meet the eviction moratorium is you have to have searched out under a rental assistance program. And that's part of getting the waiver. You have to be looking for these. So I suspect with that type of requirement in there, we should see an influx of cases as people are going to be looking for that release. So let's keep an open mind on how we approach this situation. But I do think it does provide some relief on the order, and I look forward to working with the commission going forward on the eviction problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Epperson. Ken, you're up. Is he on mute, host?
May have gone to one of them places of ill repute.
We'll move along. We'll move on. Commissioner Atkins, go ahead and take the call.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on just how much influence Commissioner John Paul Young has. I never knew that he had a line straight to the White House and that the president would adopt his resolution and allocate it across the country. So I just wanted to recognize John Paul for that level of influence. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
What a man.
Kudos to Mr. Young. Commissioner Watts. Storm, are you with us?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Wilson, to Clerk Jeff Everson, the facilities and maintenance for your support of the prayer call event. And I want to begin out by saying that yesterday was nothing short of amazing for our community to come together and pray. Thank you, Emily, for your warm sentiments of calling in on today. We appreciate your support. Mr. President, to you, I want to say thank you, along with so many other men who stood guard yesterday. But I thank you especially for today, for your comments, for your presence, and your continued support. On behalf of Representative Tammy Phelps, Councilwoman Tabitha Taylor, and yours truly, we stood on our faith because we need a healing in our land. We're deeply concerned when grandmothers are chased out of their gardens with gunfire, that pregnant women and our children and teens are being killed and traumatized from gun violence. We cannot be silent to these tragedies, and doing nothing is not an option. We are so humbled that our mayor, judges, school board members, other former and present elected officials stood with us. But most of all, the people who showed up, watched live, or prayed right where they were. You are who we held this call to prayer for. We pray that you received hope on yesterday. We care and we will not give up on you or our community. This is not a moment, but it's a movement. And it was not for any other reason than to bring us together on one accord and fight against this evil terrorizing our land. We shall continue praying and fighting, believing change will come. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Good afternoon, fellow commissioners. First and foremost, I want to wish everyone had not be consumed in the traditional manner in which we do it, but we hope that the spirit and the tenor of what it's intended to do is to honor the labor force of the United States and being the backbone of this society. Secondly, I want to publicly commend Commissioner John Paul Young for his moratorium on the eviction deal. I had some conflation with it, but I was watching CNN last night, and there was a heart-wrenching story on evictions in the city of Houston. And it really shows you from an abstract point of view where the rubber hits the road and how it is affecting people. And so, you know, as a community, as a society, how do we come together and find that middle ground? So I think Commissioner Young needs to be added a chapter in the Barry Goldwater book, The Conscience of a Conservative, and his chapter would be The Compassionate Conservative. So thank you, Mr. Young, for your support, and thank you for that resolution and ordinance. You guys have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you, Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Vice President Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Wilson, I think about a month or so ago, I asked for a written detail of how we go back into the chamber.
Yes, sir.
I know you put steps in place, but I would like to see something in black and white of how we go into the chamber, how the citizens are brought into the chamber, what would the commissioners be doing while sitting in the chamber. Do they all wear masks and take masks off while talking? Just go into the details of that. Also, do commissioners move around the horseshoe during the meeting and go into other people's cubicle areas, I guess you could say. I just want to make sure that all that is spelled out in some form and fashion.
Okay.
Second of all, the Register of Voters office. I know that's going to be now the primary location that a lot of people will be going to. And I think that that block of Marshall Street should probably be blocked off for that week to allow that, I know some commissioners talked about putting tents up. I think those tents could go out in the road and the people could stand under the tents and still have social distance and make that work. Instead of having the line going around the corner and be on Texas Street, they can actually go up and down Marshall if the line got that long. And using the tents in the middle of the road, you can now have the weighted legs to keep the tents from being able to fly off like they do down at the Shreveport Festival Plaza.
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson, I hear your comments, sir. Not to be critical, but you need to be aware that we move prisoners in and out of that side of the building. That's the only way they can go in and out.
Oh, that is the only way?
Yes, sir. We cannot impede that. And because that entrance is near the jail, and the whole process will be disrupted if we did that.
Okay. All right. Well, that was just a thought.
Yes, sir.
To try to accommodate the citizens.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then the third thing, I think everybody is passionate about things that they put on the agenda and things that they do. And, when people disagree, it's not like it's the last thing on earth and that somebody is stabbing you in the back. We should be able to disagree and agree at the same time. And not hold grudges and not do idle threats or bullying other commissioners to do the things that they want them to do. I've been commissioner now for 10 years, and this has happened to me for the first time because I didn't agree with something that somebody said, or they felt that I did something behind their back. My thing is, we all are here or supposed to be here to do what's best for the citizens of Caddo Parish. We might not have the same opinion, might not go by it the same way, but we should be here for that particular cause. And that's the reason I ran for office, was to help people. I'm not here to glorify myself. I'm here to help. And if I'm not helping people, then I don't want to be elected anymore. And my thoughts is, if you put something on the agenda and I don't really agree with it, and I have a substitute for it, then I have a substitute for it. And then let the votes fall where they may. I don't take well to idle threats. I don't take well to being bullied. My parents raised me to mind my own business, do what I got to do. But at the same time, I'm going to defend myself as a man. So I just wanted to put that out there and say that. That's all I have to say, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner Burrell, I have your hand up again. Would you like to speak on the board again?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. You have the floor.
As long as they don't call for the question.
You got 15 minutes. You can speak all you want.
Well, I just want to say too, a happy Labor Day to everyone, given the fact that we have this COVID pandemic that has created at least a 10.2, if not higher, unemployment rate. This is a special time to recognize people who are out of work and unemployed. A second thing that I have is to our fellow Commissioner J. Paul Young. I really thought that that was a great suggestion on the rent moratorium. I did understand Commissioner Teleferio, as well as you, Mr. President, your position on those issues too, because I do have rental property and I do need to pay my rent, or should I say my note. So I understand that too. Also to Ms. Stormy Gage Watts and Tabitha and our state representative on their efforts. I wanted to be down there, but I got a 94-year-old mother-in-law that I'm trying to keep safe that was taken out of her house because the hurricane went more toward Monroe. She lived in Monroe by herself, still independent, but at the same time, when storms like that come, we have to go and take care of her and try to bring her over here to take care of her. And I would have been there with you. I was there in spirit, but I couldn't be there physically. The last thing, again, I had mentioned earlier about the tents being outside. I said canopies, but tent canopies, potatoes. But at the same time,
Excuse me, Commissioner, I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know, it appears we've been getting some notices that the feed has dropped out on our broadcast. So if you were saying anything that you wanted the audience to hear, I just wanted to let you know we're working on getting it back up now.
No, I'm fine. This is to the commissioners and to it's not so much the public until it's time. So my last statement was on the tents. Normally we have the traffic coming in from the my wife is at the door and I got it locked. I tell you what, we'll deal with that next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Watts, I have you back on the board. Did you want to speak? Never mind. Your hand just went away.
No, I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. So now we know how to get Commissioner Burrell to be quiet for 2 minutes. He's gone. Okay, I just wanted to say, happy Labor Day, and happy Labor Day weekend to everyone. And please remember that COVID-19 has no cure or vaccine. People, please be safe this weekend. Wear your mask, practice social distancing, wash your hands. It is not time to party. Our numbers are finally going in the right direction, but it is not the time for us to mingle with a whole lot of out-of-town people because there are new hotspots and it's easy for this thing to arise quickly again in our area. So I just want to beg you all to please don't use this weekend to make an uptick in COVID-19. And I also wanted to say I highly respect all of my commissioners, and I think that we all have a great working relationships. And I'm always very consistent on what I try to say and represent for who I am. Everything that I do is always for the people. My heart is with the people no matter what. And when we do things that are against people, no matter who they are, I do have a problem with it. I was not in support of what we voted for earlier with the early satellite voting locations. And I will continue to stand and believe that we need to make things accommodating for all people, not just some people. And everyone has the right to vote their conviction. But I do agree, it's never right for anyone to be bullied or for anyone to be disrespected about their vote. We owe one another that. So I hope that this is many of the times that we'll agree to disagree. I hope that something will get us back on one accord, because I think that we've been doing a great job in getting things done for our parish. And we have to be careful of the things that we let take us off of our task. So again, thank you, and you all have a great weekend.
Well said, Commissioner Watts. Commissioners, I have no one else on the board.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
I just wanted to conclude my final statement. I had to rush and let my wife in the door. I locked the door and she was outside.
You have the floor. Go for it.
It was about the tents. I noticed that the flow of traffic that we have coming into that voting area comes from down towards City Hall. Why can't we consider putting the tents back toward Milam Street right there, going back toward the post office and cordon that off and do it from that side? Because as was said before, you have prisoners that they bring in on that side. But if we direct the traffic from the other way, I don't think it would be as much of a problem if you wind up putting tents back, if you understand what I'm saying, back toward Milam and then toward the post office. That was my only other suggestion.
So we'll look at that, Commissioner Burrell.
I'm sorry?
We'll take a look at that flow, see if it'll work, and see if the register would agree with that as well.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell, and thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mr. Everson, moving along.
All right, that brings us to citizens' comments, late arrivals. We've not received any electronically, but at this time, I'll share the phone number one more time, 318-226-6596, if anybody has a final citizens' comment.
No? Okay, Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion. Have a great Labor Day, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.